bystander effect stands as one of the most unsettling discoveries in human psychology, revealing how the mere presence of others can paralyze our impulse to help someone in distress. At its core, this phenomenon describes the counterintuitive tendency for individuals to become less likely to intervene in an emergency when more bystanders are around, rather than rushing forward with instinctive compassion. People freeze, scan the crowd, and unconsciously delegate responsibility. This isn't cowardice or indifference in the raw sense. It's a deeply wired social psychological process that has been replicated in laboratories and observed in real crises for decades. Understanding it forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about human nature. Our prosocial instincts are not as automatic as we like to believe. They are shaped, and often sabotaged, by the invisible architecture of the group mind. The concept exploded into public awareness in 1964, following the murder of Kitty Genovese in New York City. Initial newspaper reports claimed that 38 witnesses watched from their windows as she was stabbed to death in 3 separate attacks over 35 minutes. Yet no one called the police or stepped outside to help, although later investigations revealed the story was sensationalized. Far fewer witnesses actually saw or heard the full crime, and several did contact authorities. The case became a lightning rod for research. Social psychologists John Darley and Bibb Latané, disturbed by the public outcry, designed a series of elegant experiments that stripped away the drama and exposed the underlying mechanics. In one classic study, participants sat in individual cubicles and believed they were discussing personal problems over an intercom. When a Confederate feigned a severe epileptic seizure, the speed and likelihood of intervention dropped dramatically as the number of perceived bystanders increased. With only one other listener, 85% of participants left their cubicle to help within seconds. When they thought 5 others were listening, the rate plummeted to 31%. The emergency was identical. Only the perceived crowd changed. What exactly happens inside the mind during these moments? Darley and Latané identified 3 interlocking psychological processes. First comes diffusion of responsibility. When many people are present, each individual feels the moral burden lightened, as if the duty to act is spread so thin that no single person owns it. Someone else will call 911, the brain whispers. Second is pluralistic ignorance, a form of social misreading in which everyone assumes the situation must not be serious because no one else is reacting. A man clutching his chest on the subway platform is met with averted eyes and continued scrolling. Each bystander interprets the collective calm as evidence that nothing is truly wrong. Third is evaluation apprehension, the fear of looking foolish or overreacting in front of strangers. No one wants to be the person who dramatically helps someone who turns out to be merely drunk or joking. These 3 forces operate so swiftly and automatically that they override the natural empathy circuits that would otherwise propel us to act. Modern neuroscience has added vivid color to these findings. Brain imaging shows that when people believe they are alone in witnessing distress, the anterior cingulate cortex and insula regions, tied to emotional pain and moral urgency, light up intensely. Introduce even a handful of virtual bystanders, and activity in these areas dampens, while regions associated with social monitoring and self-presentation become more engaged. The effect is not limited to strangers in public spaces. It appears in workplaces when bullying goes unchecked, in online forums when harassment spirals because thousands watch in silence, and even in classrooms where a student struggles and the rest of the group stares blankly. Digital platforms have supercharged the bystander effect. The infinite scroll creates an illusion of infinite bystanders, diffusing responsibility to the point of near total paralysis. A viral video of someone in crisis can rack up millions of views, while generating only a handful of meaningful responses. Yet the bystander effect is not an unbreakable law of human nature. Subsequent research has uncovered clear moderators that can flip the script. When the situation is unambiguous, blood screams, clear danger, intervention rates rise. When bystanders share a sense of group identity or feel personally competent to help a trained nurse in a crowd, for instance, diffusion weakens. Most powerfully, when even one person models decisive action, the entire dynamic shifts. Others are suddenly liberated to follow. This one brave voice effect demonstrates that courage is contagious once the first crack appears in the wall of collective inaction. Training programs in schools and corporations now teach these principles explicitly. Notice, interpret, assume responsibility, decide how to help, and act. Simple prompts, such as pointing at a specific person and saying, "You call emergency services," can shatter diffusion in seconds. From an evolutionary standpoint, the bystander effect makes a grim kind of sense. For most of human history, survival depended on tight-knit bands where reputations and reciprocal altruism mattered. In the anonymous crowds of modern cities, or the disembodied crowds of the internet, those ancient mechanisms misfire. We are wired for small group vigilance, not megacity indifference. Yet psychology also shows that awareness itself is a powerful antidote. Once people learn the name and mechanics of the bystander effect, they become measurably more likely to intervene in staged emergencies. Knowledge rewires the automatic response. In the end, the bystander effect is less a verdict on human selfishness than a cautionary map of our social cognition. It reminds us that empathy does not scale effortlessly with group size. It must be deliberately cultivated. The next time you witness someone in distress, whether on a sidewalk, a timeline, or a subway car, pause for only a heartbeat and ask yourself the three critical questions Darley and Latane taught us. Is this an emergency? Does it require my action? Will I take personal responsibility? In that brief, internal dialogue lies the difference between becoming another silent face in the crowd and becoming the one person whose courage reminds the rest of us what humanity can still achieve. The research is clear. The crowd does not have to win. You can choose, right now, to break the effect.